The Phillies have another huge week, beating a couple of the best pitchers in the game as well as taking care of business against the teams they're supposed to beat. Also, the Eagles kicked off their preseason schedule yesterday. I'll recap the 24-21 loss to the Jets. And finally, one of the best players in the NBA reportedly would like to play in Philly. This episode of the Phillies Sports Spot YouTube channel starts right now. What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this edition of the Phillies Sports Spot YouTube channel. I am your host, Jordan Hirsch. Now, guys, before we get into this video, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. You could also follow me on Instagram. The link will be in the description below. Alrighty, so let's get right into this episode talking about the Phillies, who go 5-1 this week, taking care of business against the Nationals and Marlins, and then beating the New York Mets up in a playoff-like atmosphere at Citi Field yesterday. To start this episode right off with the Phillies week in review. Saturday, they pounded the Nationals 11-5. Pretty easy win there. Phillies really beat up on Patrick Corbin early, took a 9-0 lead, and then win the game 11-5. Sunday, an even bigger win, 13-1. Everybody contributing in that game. Derek Hall, Nick Maton, Bryson Stott, pretty much everybody that played. Rhys Hoskins extended his homer streak to 4 games at the time. During that game, another big Phillies win against a struggling Nationals team. They were then off on Monday, came back for a 3-game series against the Marlins on Tuesday. Couple rain delays in that game. Phillies take care of business, though, against Braxton Garrett. They win that game 4-1. Zach Wheeler was dealing, only gave up the 1 run on a homer to J.J. Bleday, who the Phillies could not seem to get out all week. So the Phillies win that game 4-1. That extends their winning streak at the time to 6 consecutive games. Wednesday's game looked a little shaky with Sandy Alcantara on the mound. He was dealing through the first 7 innings. Phillies found themselves down 3-1 heading into the 8th. But a couple of big hits. Brandon Marsh with an RBI single in that game. Kyle Schwarber that inning as well, coming up with a big RBI single. And Kyle Schwarber with the aggressive base running goes first to third, sets up JT Realmuto's big 2-out RBI single to give the Phillies a 4-3 lead. Citizens Bank Park was going absolutely wild at that point as the Phillies win that game 4-3. Only 24,000 people there, and it sounded like 44,000. Nice sellout there. Phillies then on Thursday in a day game. They got dominated pretty much by Edward Cabrera the entire game, got him out after 5 2/3. And then the offense kind of started turning around. They were down 3-0 headed into the 8th. Alec Boehm, of course, punched out on a 3-2 pitch that should not have been called a strike, but would have loaded up the bases if Boehm had walked there in the 8th. But the Phillies do not score in the 8th. They then threaten in the 9th, loading up the bases with nobody out. Rob Thompson elects to go with Edmundo Sosa in place of Garrett Stubbs. In that inning, Sosa puts up one heck of an at-bat, but unfortunately strikes out on a pretty nasty 3-2 slider there by Tanner Scott. Next batter, Matt Vierling, unfortunately would strike out, and then Brandon Marsh would ground out to first to end the game. So Phillies do lose that game 3-0, but make it exciting at the end. And that's really what I like. There is absolutely no quit in this ball club. As you see, last night, Phillies with a ton of hits off of Max Scherzer, but only the 1 run. They struggled again with runners in scoring position yesterday, as they did on Thursday. But an absolute, how about that play by Matt Vierling out in left field? Runners on the corners, 1 out. Daniel Vogelback hits that line drive to left field. Cora decides to send Starling Marte there to try to win the game for the Mets, but Matt Vierling says, nah, comes up firing, throws an absolute strike to JT Realmuto, who basically body slams Starling Marte out of the way, gets the tag applied, and the Phillies keep that game tied going into the 10th. Then, in the 10th, Starling Marte with a chance for redemption. Bryson Stott on third, Alec Boehm, it's a fly ball to right field, and Marte comes up firing to the plate. A chance to send that game to the bottom of the 10th, still tied, but he short hops Tomas Nido. The ball gets away, and the Phillies take that lead 2-1. They go on to win by that score as David Robertson escapes some trouble in the 10th, rather, with the benefit of a pretty big strike zone yesterday by home plate umpire Scott Berry. So the Phillies get that win 2-1 in a playoff-like atmosphere. Bring on the Mets. I mean, how about that? I think we could pretty much officially say this team is legit. You go up to New York into that atmosphere and beat Max Scherzer. I mean, Ranger Suarez pitched better than Max Scherzer did last night if you look at straight like runs and hits. I mean, of course, they both allowed the 1 run but Max Scherzer allowed many more hits than Ranger Suarez did. And Ranger Suarez matched him pitch for pitch, and that's exactly what you have to do when you're going up against one of the best pitchers in the game in Max Scherzer. But I would also like to point out to Keith Hernandez, who, of course, as we all know, said that on live TV on Tuesday's Mets-Reds game on SNY that he basically requested off for broadcasting these next two games between the Phillies and the Mets on SNY because he hates watching the Phillies play because defensively and fundamentally they've just never been up to it. Well, Keith, who threw that runner out at the plate last night? Was it the Phillies or was it the Mets? How about Alec Boehm's barehanded play with Ranger Suarez crossing in front of him? Who made that play? Who made that play, Keith? I would just like to point that one out right there. And the Phillies, by the way, this entire season, the Phillies, they've committed 48 errors. The Mets, they have committed 49. So the Mets have literally committed more errors than the Phillies have this season. And Keith Hernandez is whining about our defense. I mean, come on. Phillies have only committed 17 errors since June 1st. That leads the league. That's the lowest in the league, rather. Phillies do lead the league in fielding percentage in that time frame. So their defense, as a true Philly fan, a true person who has actually watched the Phillies over these last 2.5 months, knows that their defense is well improved. The Phillies also were able to win that game yesterday with Bryson Stott in the leadoff spot because Kyle Schwarber was out yesterday with a mild right calf strain. It was something that he said has actually been bothering him for 2 to 3 weeks now, and he just wasn't able to stay in the game Thursday. That's why he was taken out in the 5th inning of Thursday's loss against the Marlins. So Kyle Schwarber dealing with a right calf strain, mild, however, and he does hope to play at some point, if not later this weekend against the Mets, probably next week when we are in Cincinnati. So pretty good news that it's not a major injury, and you definitely don't want Kyle Schwarber out there hurt and risking an even worse injury and having him out for an extended period of time while the Phillies are right in the thick of this playoff push. So yeah, I think definitely a smart move by Kyle Schwarber to just take himself out of that game on Thursday, don't risk further injury, and really just try to do as best you can to keep yourself healthy in the long run. One of my really big takeaways for this Phillies week in review is that, so they pound the Nationals Saturday and Sunday. They get a pretty easy win on Tuesday against the Marlins in that 4-1 game. It's nice. It's obviously nice to see them crushing teams that they're supposed to crush and really handling teams they're supposed to handle. But I mean, you kind of, if a lot of teams sometimes when they are winning big like that and winning easily, you kind of get into that mode of, oh, every game's going to be easy, and if you fall behind, it's like, well, what do we do now? We're not used to this. So it's really nice to see the Phillies mix in those clutch wins and kind of see this team not say, hey, look, we're going to crush every team, and if we fall down early in the games, if we are losing early in the games, that this game's over. The Phillies have not really had that mindset, it looks like, as they come back with that huge win against Sandy Alcantara, and then the huge clutch win, of course, yesterday up in New York. The Phillies also, of course, almost pulled that one out Thursday against the Marlins. So it's really nice to see that this team really has no quit, especially after a lot of big wins, really this entire winning streak that they'd been on. All right, so let's now get into the Phillies week ahead. They're going to finish off this series tonight and tomorrow up in New York. Tonight's game is at 7:10 on NBC 10. Aaron Nola taking on Jacob deGrom, another excellent pitching matchup there. And another good pitching matchup tomorrow at 1:40 on NBC Sports Philadelphia, MLB Network for out-of-market only, for Zach Wheeler against Chris Bassett of the Mets. The Phillies will then travel to Cincinnati for 3. All these games are going to be on NBC Sports Philadelphia at 6:40 on Monday and Tuesday, then 12:35 on Wednesday. The Phillies should be able to take care of the Reds and get at least 2 out of 3 there, I think. They'll be off Thursday before taking on the Mets again in Philly. That series starts on the 19th, Friday. That game will be on NBC 10 at 7:05. The Phillies then play doubleheader against the Mets Saturday on makeup from the rain-out game on May 6th. The 1:05 game will be on NBC Sports Philadelphia. It's a split doubleheader. And then 7:15 later that night on Fox Baseball Night in America. And the Phillies will then wrap up that series next Sunday at 1:35 on NBC Sports Philadelphia. And I think Phillies fans really need to take note. I mean, obviously, we don't like Mets fans. We hate them. But I think the Phillies fans need to take note of how the Mets fans were really reacting all game, yesterday. I mean, they were up, they were loud. It was a playoff-like atmosphere yesterday, and it's probably going to be a playoff-like atmosphere these next 2 games up at Citi Field. The Phillies fans need to one-up them this upcoming series. 7:05 against the Mets again. I'll reiterate, 7:05 against the Mets on Friday, then 1:05, 7:15 doubleheader Saturday, and 1:35 on Sunday. There are tickets available for all 4 of those games, so if you're considering going, go. We need that place loud. We need it rocking. We need a 2007 through 2011 atmosphere at Citizens Bank Park, I think. Let's show the Mets what real fans look like. Alright, so let's switch gears now to the Birds. The Eagles kicked off their preseason schedule yesterday. They lost 24-21 to the Jets. However, the starters did play 1 series, and Jalen Hurts looked fantastic. Went 6 for 6 for 80 yards, and a great 22-yard touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert, where he goes leaping over 2 Jets defenders into the end zone. That gave the Eagles a 7-0 lead at the time. Garner Minshew looked pretty good yesterday. He went 8 for 12 for 81 yards, 85.8 QB rating. So all in all, a pretty good showing there by Garner Minshew, who has not had the best training camp, according to some of the Eagles reporters. So good to see Garner Minshew come up big in the biggest spot yet of this young preseason. Reid Cenet also played quarterback a little bit for the Eagles yesterday. He goes 9 for 17, 85.7 QB rating. He was not terrible. He's not terrible. He threw a touchdown pass late in that game that gave the Eagles a 21-17 lead at the time. Jets went right down the field though and scored with just 16 seconds left, and took the game 24-21. But good showings all around. Jason Huntley, I think he had a pretty big game. Of course, he may be going with Kenny Gainwell for that 3rd running back spot. He had 48 yards. He had a long of 8. He had a touchdown as well in the first quarter. Brooks also with the touchdown reception from Reid Cenet late. He had a pretty good game as well. In 7 attempts rushing, went 26 yards. Had another long of 8 there. And then the receivers, some receivers really showed up big. I mean, how about the first play of the game? The 28-yard pass by Jalen Hurts right on the money to Quez Watkins. Gets his feet down in bounds and makes that reception. And then obviously Dallas Goedert's 22-yard touchdown was a big one. Zach Pascal had a 32-yard reception from Garner Minshew in the second quarter. I think he's probably a guy a lot of people forget about. Of course, Eagles have A.J. Brown, Quez Watkins, some of their bigger name guys, Devontae Smith, of course. I think kind of Zach Pascal kind of fades in the background as that 4th receiver, but he could end up playing a pretty big role. He wasn't a terrible receiver when he was with Indianapolis, and I expect him to be a pretty good 4th receiver, or maybe even 3rd receiver, depending on how he plays in this preseason. The Eagles also showed their aggressiveness last night, going for 5 4th downs and converting 4 of them. So the Eagles really good on 4th down there. I mean, Nick Sirianni, I think he kind of treated this like it was a regular season game. I mean, he saw them all, I'm sure you've seen it now on social media, you saw them all fired up after Jalen Hurts took that clearly illegal, dirty hit on his first drive of the game there. If you could read his lips, you could tell that Nick Sirianni was really fired up, and I think he's treating this preseason, and especially treating last night's game, like it's the regular season, which I think is exactly what you want to do, because you got to get this team prepared for the regular season, especially a team that has playoff aspirations. And all right, as we take a look at the Eagles week ahead, they're going to have their second preseason game in Cleveland on Sunday, August 21st. That game will kick off at 1 o'clock. That game can be seen on NBC 10. Eagles only with the 1 home preseason game this season, because they will play 9 home regular season games. So the next chance that these fans will get to see the Eagles at the Link will be for their home opener in Week 2 on Monday Night Football, September 19th, against the Vikings. And finally, the last thing that I want to get into this week was, of course, the rumor that the Sixers are among Kevin Durant's desired destinations, along with a couple other teams, including the Boston Celtics. I don't think that we should really get our hopes up for Kevin Durant coming to Philly. I just don't think. First of all, I don't think the Sixers have enough to be able to entice the Nets to try to trade KD here to Philly, at least more than some of these other teams have. The Sixers can't even trade a first-round pick until 2029. So they'd have to package some players, and you really would probably end up having to be something like Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, probably Matisse Thybulle, and some other players in there. I've heard maybe George Niang, Furkan Korkmaz, guys like that. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to entice Brooklyn, and do we really think that the Nets are going to trade another star player, and this time a superstar really, to an interdivision team for the second time in as many years? I just don't see it happening. Of course, the Celtics are also an interdivision team. There are some other teams on that desired list, I'm sure, for Kevin Durant. And the Nets don't need to trade him. Of course, Kevin Durant, he's one of the best players in the league, if not the best player in the league. He could force his way out of pretty much anywhere. We saw James Harden do it in Brooklyn. But I just don't think Brooklyn's going to be real willing to trade KD to the Sixers. And if they do end up trading him to an interdivision team, I think the Celtics are more likely just because they are able to package more picks and perhaps some better players for KD as well. Alright, that is going to wrap things up for this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. Again, guys, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on. I post every Saturday, so make sure you never miss another upload. You can also follow me on Instagram. Link will be in the description below. You can also just look me up. It's at Philly Sports Spot. That's PhillySportSpot. So just one S between sport and spot. So until next week, let's go Phillies. Let's go Eagles.